Hello, and welcome to the East Africa Business Podcast. I'm Sam Floy, and I'm now based from Kenya, having explored the business environment across the region at the end of 2016, primarily through the use of this podcast, and deciding, for me at least, that it was the best one to live and work from. This episode, and the others in the archive, are all about showcasing startups and organisations who are playing their part in helping East Africa develop and grow. And by following along, you too can hear their stories. For now though, let's enjoy the rest of this funky intro music, and then get started with the episode.
When you consider different ways of getting information, you might think of going on Google or reading a book. But how to do this in an environment with no libraries, computers, let alone internet access? Farms in the field have limited means to get information, and WeFarm are looking to help by providing a peer-to-peer platform for farmers to send SMS questions and answers to each other. Kenny, the CEO, and I discussed the process of pairing these questions and answers, why he thinks people are altruistically contributing to the platform, and the most common question that they get asked by their farmers. At times, the audio is a little bit iffy, but we've done our best to edit things out to what is hopefully an acceptable level. If you want some more information, then please do head to samfloy.com/podcast for the show notes. For now though, I hope you enjoy this episode with Kenny from WeFarm. Cool, so I'm here today with Kenny from WeFarm. Kenny, welcome to the show.
Thanks, pleasure to be here.
So just to get us started, can you tell us a bit about you and a bit about WeFarm?
Sure, yes. So I'm Kenny. I'm CEO and founder of WeFarm. Originally from the west coast of Scotland, now based in London via many years in Latin America. And WeFarm is a crowdsourcing app or crowdsourcing technology for people without access to the internet.
See, so if they don't have access to the internet, how are they connected?
So we use a range of different technologies, but primarily SMS. With the idea of being able to crowdsource vital information for some of the 500 million small-scale farmers there are around the world who grow most of the world's food but have no access to the internet.
I see, okay, so what are they using WeFarm for?
An incredible variety of things, but I can give you a kind of typical example of how a farmer might interact with WeFarm. An example we commonly use is a user called Victor. He's a tea farmer in rural Kenya, about 5 miles walk from the nearest village. His tea plants were being attacked by a pest that he'd never seen before, destroying his livelihood. So he just sends an SMS, a text message for free to the local WeFarm number. At that point, WeFarm, our behind-the-scenes technology, does lots of machine learning processes and analysis of that content, deciding what it is the farmer's trying to ask, the location, the farming type, etc. And the system picks out 5 to 10 people in our network that we know have the knowledge to be able to answer that question, and it sends it to them via SMS. And then when they answer the question, we get it back to the original farmer. Victor's question actually ended up being answered by a tea farmer in Uganda called Doris. She'd been dealing with this pest, every day of her life for the last 10 years. And I guess in a nutshell, that's what WeFarm is trying to do, is connect the experiences, the solutions, the knowledge of generations worth of farming, but even without internet.
I see. So how does Doris know, in this instance, that Victor is talking about the same pest that she knows?
I guess that's where the technology element comes in. Being honest, this is a work in progress for us. Like all algorithms and sort of bringing AI to these things, it's a process of trying to get things better and better over time. Literally every time somebody uses WeFarm, our algorithms get that little bit better. In some cases it's extremely easy to know exactly what pest or exactly what problem somebody's talking about. In other instances, it could be a range of different things, or there could be a range of different solutions for different geographies, altitudes, to exactly the same problem. And that's really what we're concentrating now in our kind of second year is moving to more sophisticated technology that can start to interpret all of those different aspects.
So how old is WeFarm? 2 years old?
We've just completed our second birthday, which is it feels a bit incredible that it's already been that long. The idea has been around a little longer. I first designed it with a colleague at an NGO we were working with about 4 or 5 years ago now. We did pilots under the NGO as a kind of grant-funded project. When we saw the excitement and the potential, we decided to launch it as a social enterprise startup. That was to 2 years ago. We launched the product to farmers a month later, and it's been like I guess most startups, a roller coaster ever since. But generally speaking, things have been going phenomenally well for us. We are just about to welcome our 150,000th farmer into the system, which for offline markets is pretty unprecedented growth. They use it a lot as well, so we've shared 21 million interactions between them, most of them without any internet. And our kind of monthly active users that come back every single month to contribute content is very high by the standards you would expect to see on social networks.
Why do you think it's very high?
I think that's probably a couple of different reasons. I think one is simply that there are not other tools out there for farmers to use who don't have access to the internet. There's some apps and the different internet platforms for apps, but if you're using an old school Nokia phone or a feature phone, there's not too much choice. But I think what WeFarm does differently from even other SMS services is empower that community knowledge. So I think it's widely acknowledged just about everywhere that access to knowledge and information is a really key driver in people's lives and bringing people out of poverty. But I think virtually everybody comes at this from a top-down perspective. There's really a sort of ingrained idea that when it comes to poor people, they just need to be told what to do. We'll decide the training and just give it to you. I think at WeFarm, we're trying to challenge that. We're trying to harness the knowledge that exists within the network and connect those together. And I think people find that quite empowering. A lot of the farmers that we're working with have probably literally never been asked their opinion or their advice on anything before. And I think that's quite a powerful driver.
And so how many countries does WeFarm operate in?
So currently we're in 3 countries. Kenya was our first country and it's still our biggest. We launched in Uganda a few months ago, and that's growing even faster than Kenya, which is really exciting. And we're also live in Peru, on the other side of the world. So very different set of challenges and quite a diverse set of countries for a small startup. But I think for now, that's our kind of core business strategy this year, is to really focus on building a significant market share in those countries before we get too much bigger. But I think there's a few other countries such as Tanzania, India, maybe some of the West African countries that are on our sort of medium to longer term radar.
So mentioned, so the farmers that you work with, you're saying at the moment they have no real alternative to WeFarm. Is it other than maybe asking other farmers that they know in their immediate vicinity?
Yeah, so that's definitely an option, and that was kind of one of the original concepts that we were playing with, is taking that local marketplace and making it global. I guess a metaphor that's been used for the internet before, but something that was really inspiring for us. I mean, there are other options available, and a lot of countries are doing their best in the agricultural space. Kenya is a good example. They recognize the importance of agriculture to their economy, and there are government extension workers, as they're called, agricultural experts that go out to support farmers. I don't know exactly what the ratios are, but there's something like one extension worker to every 25,000 farmers. So you can imagine how often people get that kind of contact, and not very often at all. And I think we would see WeFarm as a tool to support that and support those extension workers, not to replace kind of countries' existing efforts in this. But yeah, I mean, for many farmers, literally there's no other way of receiving information.
And how do you sign up a farmer?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the big challenges for us is how do you do marketing in this digital age offline? And one of the interesting processes for us has been almost to kind of step back in time and look at marketing techniques that people might have been using 20 years ago on feature phones in the UK or in the US, and try to kind of update that same approach in a new market, which is fun. At the moment, I mean, primarily there's a kind of couple of ways that we tend to encourage farmers to sign up. One is through radio work. Radio is obviously a medium that our target audiences are listening to widely, and we've got some very successful partnerships with radios here in Kenya and Uganda. And the other is through farming partnerships. And so many people, whether they're businesses that are buying from these farmers, NGOs that are working with them, governments that are working with them. There's so many people in countries like Kenya that are involved in the agricultural supply chain. So for us, part of our commercial model, but also our kind of marketing and user acquisition model, is to work with those organizations to sign up the farmers that they're working with, which for some of the big multinationals or some of the big NGOs is literally tens of thousands of farmers.
And does WeFarm make money?
Theoretically, yeah. I mean, we are a social enterprise, but we are a for-profit company limited by shares. We would always want to keep the social mission at the heart of what we do, but ultimately we do aim to make money. We've just closed our seed investment round with VCs that I'm sure will be very eager to hear us say that we are a money-making company. In reality, our business model is probably closest to the social networks. So, while we want to be a lot more socially responsible, ultimately it's a scale-based model. Like a Facebook or a Twitter, there's a lot of money to be made in these kind of models, but you need to get to really significant size. So our core kind of business and strategic goals this year are very much about growing the network. Our aim is to reach 1 million farmers using WeFarm in the next 12 months, and then continue to grow worldwide from there. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, none of these kind of initiatives are sustainable unless there's a sustainable financial model involved as well.
I see. So have you generated any revenue so far?
Yes, we have generated some revenue. Obviously those are important milestones for any startup. Our commercial model is more based around the kind of unique insights that we can generate into the world's commodities and the world's supply chain. The farmers that we work with ultimately source 70% of the world's food. They're ultimately selling to some of the big multinationals that everyone will have heard of. But a lot of those multinationals have very little insight into actually what's happening at the bottom of their supply chain. Essentially, WeFarm aggregates the millions of pieces of content coming through our system to try to give a unique picture of what's happening in the supply chain. So an example of that might be tracking a disease or a drought or some kind of major agricultural issue, months before it might otherwise be recognized. Obviously, that's valuable social data for governments and NGOs, but it's also valuable commercial data for multinationals and commodities traders.
So, for example, I'm a tea manufacturer, and I pay WeFarm to say, let me know when people like Victor are talking about pests, and you might then think, okay, maybe there's going to be an issue on the supply side of tea.
Yeah, I mean, I think the model would take 1,000 people like Victor talking about the same kind of incident, but yeah, essentially that's exactly it. Of trying to aggregate unique insight through people's natural content they're sharing. As an example, just last week we were tracking a maize disease through different content on WeFarm that seemed to be happening in Kenya. At this stage that's still work in progress from us, and we need to make sure we have that technology really functioning well before we start alarming people. And we're looking to collaborate with the kind of government here in Kenya and different NGOs that are working on that to say, look, this is what our data is showing. Is there any way we can collaborate with you to kind of validate that and see what's happening in the field? And ultimately then using our data to compare to other people's data and hopefully do some really significant stuff.
Got it. So in the instance of the maize disease, if I've got it right, so you're essentially deconstructing plain text SMS messages that people are sending back and forth and categorizing them? Or how does that then go to being able to say we think there's a maize disease?
I mean, essentially that's it. I mean, we started off looking at potentially the example of foot and mouth disease of over 1,000 questions with people talking about different symptoms that they could all relate to foot and mouth disease. How do you build an algorithm that's kind of monitoring all of that? And obviously algorithms don't speak like that, but essentially saying, hey, that's going on over here and this is going on over here. Wait a minute, if we put those two things together, that looks very much like foot and mouth disease. And that's the kind of algorithms that we're trying to build that maybe take 50 different symptoms that they know of. If we get a lot of content that covers 30 of those within a 24-hour period, then there's a substantial statistical likelihood that there might be a foot and mouth outbreak happening. Again, it obviously takes time to get those things right and get them as accurate as they can be, but again, in an area where probably no data exists in this thing for months after it happens, anything that we can start to do is going to be an advantage.
See. And when you talk about the algorithm, is that that's being developed by WeFarm in-house?
Yeah, it's a very secret safe that we can tell you the location of that. We started off outsourcing all of our technology when we were just developing the idea as a very small startup. But I come from an engineering background and physical sense rather than a tech sense. So I'm pleased to say that I already understand nothing about our technology. But over time, we've brought that in house. We have a great CTO, a tech team, data scientists. That's been a huge priority for us over the last 6 months as we look to be a proper functioning startup, a much bigger company. Is bringing that expertise in house. Given the languages in the countries that we're working in, we're some of the first people ever developing natural language processing algorithms in languages like Uganda or Swahili. So it's kind of exciting stuff at the forefront of some of the AI stuff that everyone's getting really excited about. So for us, it's a really exciting time.
All right. So that's a good one. So Victor is based in Kenya, so I'm guessing he wrote his text in Swahili.
In this particular example, he was actually an English speaker, but obviously we do have a lot of users who are speaking different languages. In Kenya, we are functional in Swahili and English. In Kenya, I think we have Ru and Kali. In Uganda, and English is the main languages there, and obviously Spanish in Peru. Kind of local languages is something that we're working on. That's step by step for us. There's obviously limits to how quickly we can integrate many different languages into the system efficiently, but ultimately over the next couple of years we'd like to have ability for everybody, whatever language they speak in Kenya, and even if they aren't able to write a text message for us, to be able to have the same technology functioning through voice as well.
See. With these, so quickly going back to the case of Victor and Doris, how quickly did Victor get a reply?
So, overall, our statistics are that about 58 to 60% of questions are answered within 24 hours, which I think is obviously something that we can continually work on getting better, but something I think we're pretty proud of at this stage. That kind of metric would compare, pretty similar to likes of Quora or kind of completely online services. So we're happy with that as a ballpark. A lot of content, in the particular example of Victor and Doris, I think the answer came within an hour. Obviously, we have quite a long tail of answers that come in, potentially up to a week later. One of the interesting things that we've started to track through our data is when people are charging their phone. We can almost tell by people's answering patterns that they tend to answer questions in a splurge when they charge their phone on a Sunday or on a Monday. And again, that's a really interesting sort of insight for us is, we shouldn't be sending people questions when we know they don't have a phone credit or their phone isn't charged. So it's really interesting to kind of take these engagement tools that a lot of people have been using online for the last few years, and people have got very used to talking about for apps and such like, but take that to a whole different level through SMS. It's been a really interesting journey.
Yeah, and I don't mean this to sound wrong, but what is Doris's incentive for answering Victor's question?
That's a question we get asked a lot. I think on one level there's a core human need to contribute and to be part of things. That's at heart how a huge amount of the internet works. Whether it's Wikipedia or eBay is possibly obviously more financially driven, but there's a lot of services out there that people just contribute their content to. Yahoo Answers, Stack Overflow, whatever it might be. My personal feeling is that at WeFarm we're tapping into that same dynamic, but multiplied by 10, because we're speaking with people who've never had that opportunity before. And I think there is something quite powerful about going to Doris and say, hey, you've never been asked anything before, but how about you contribute your 20 years worth of farming knowledge to us? How about you help a farmer somewhere else? And I think that is a really exciting dynamic. We have no problem finding people to answer questions. It's part of our plans is obviously to start taking things to the next level in terms of engagement, how we incentivize users, and how we start to build kind of a much more of a community feel. Like most startups, that's a work in progress. What's been really interesting in our kind of investigations into this and work with farmers and kind of A/B testing, we literally have tested whether farmers prefer financial incentives or prefer to be recognized in some way. Having their name read out on the radio or being name printed in the paper as a farmer of the week, and overwhelmingly farmers choose the latter. So that's the kind of engagement we're going with, of maybe every week having a farmer featured in a newspaper in Kenya, recognizing farmers' expertise on the radio, think that's proven to be a really powerful driver for people to contribute.
See, okay. And do you sort of profile your farmers as sort of givers and takers?
Yeah, we're not quite the CIA. We're not quite profiling people to too deep a degree, but of course that's really important for us to know as much as we can about what people's needs and wants are in the system. So yeah, at one level, we do tend to see a separation between people that answer and ask questions. One really interesting thing on that is that we find that young people tend to ask more questions and older generations answer more questions, which is a really interesting kind of generational knowledge cycle, and probably something quite cultural to East Africa. But beyond that, I think what we'd like to start doing and we're working on now is understanding farmers' needs to a much greater degree in terms of our machine learning and what we can start to provide them. So an example of that might be, when a farmer asks us a question about where to plant a certain seed, firstly, can we automatically compare that farmer's location to a weather database to perhaps say to them, look, don't plant that seed today, plant it tomorrow because there's a big rainstorm coming. And then secondly, over time, say to them, okay, it's been 4 weeks since you planted your seeds. We think your advance should be, X high. If they're not, send us a message. 10 weeks later, we think it should be time for doing the first harvest or fertilizing or whatever it might be. And so taking farmers' kind of inquiries and needs and trying to build a conversation with them over weeks or months to help them with farm management.
And that conversation would be more or less automatic. It would be between the farmer and we farm rather than the farmer and another farmer.
Yeah, obviously that would depend on what the content was, but yeah, taking a question and maybe some knowledge from the system and then starting to build that into an automated conversation. I think one thing that we're obviously really keen to do is pick out the best pieces of knowledge that have already been contributed. 20 million contributions so far. There's an awful lot of diamonds and golds in there, and I think one thing we're trying to get better at is automatically being able to detect where we have an existing answer that's of really good quality that can be sent, rather than having to send that question to new people. The most common question I think we ever get asked on the system is, why is my chicken eating its own egg?
What's the answer?
Well, because it's starving, you're not feeding it properly. It's literally getting to the point where it's cannibalizing its own egg to survive. But that's a question that we see in the system potentially every day, every couple of days, a huge amount of times. And that's the kind of question that we can answer automatically from existing content. Don't need to send it to other farmers. And obviously over time, getting the service better and better like that.
Do you ever get bad answers? So let's say you sent, why is my chicken eating its egg, and someone came back with an incorrect answer. Would you then still forward it on to the farmer, or is there some sort of filter in between?
I think honestly that it's somewhere in between the two. So we do a lot of automatic filtering to pull out obviously derogatory content, political content, wherever it might be, content we would want our farmers to receive. On the quality side of things, it's obviously slightly more difficult, and our approach to that is really empowering the community to do that on our behalf. So on one level, people are very defensive about people who use WeFarm badly, and we get people responding to people saying, "Don't send that. That's not good. This is a WeFarm community. We're all very proud of it."
So a farmer will. How will they know?
So on a question, for example, if a question's been sent out to 10 people, and we'll get 2 or 3 farmers responding saying that's not an appropriate question. This is WeFarm. This is for agricultural stuff, which is great. It's great that we've built that kind of spirit within the community. But on a more sophisticated level, I guess the closest analogy would probably be eBay, where obviously people rate everything that they get, and that you can buy a pair of shoes from this complete stranger because 20 other complete strangers have told you that they list things accurately, they send it on time, etc., etc. And we're promoting our community to do exactly the same thing in WeFarm. So, we know when a chicken question comes in on a certain disease that these are the 20 people who have a reputation for answering that question or that area of questions well, and that's really what we're working on. But again, the machine learning elements can really help us to define what the intention is. We started off with very blunt instruments of just blocking certain words, but very quickly when you're processing millions of messages, that becomes a unsustainable. As an example, the word for coconut in Swahili is Nazi. So very quickly we start to have to develop more clever ways of identifying what people are trying to say.
I see. And in terms of having a good reputation, is it that the people receiving my questions are saying 5 stars, or do you ask that question, or is you just sort of inferring it?
So we're working on several different ways of trying to accomplish that. I think work in progress so far. I mean, everything from just saying was this useful, yes or no, and then over millions of pieces of content, being able to establish patterns on that. Star ratings are also something that we've been looking at. So I think ultimately how we get to that will be a work in progress, but it's ultimately our product is the quality of information that we're getting to farmers. So it's the single most important thing for us is to we can't guarantee that no bad content will ever come through our system, and we see in the news all the time how even the very biggest social networks like Facebook or Twitter struggle with this when you're dealing with I think I saw a statistic that a 1 in a million incident happens on Twitter every 18 seconds or something like that. We're not quite at that level yet with WeFarm, but you're dealing with huge volumes of content. I think you need to put very robust processes in place to ensure the quality of it, but ultimately when you're dealing with human beings, you can never be completely sure.
So we'll just have a few more questions. Since you've started WeFarm, have there been any particular sort of surprises or things where you thought, when I fast forward a few years, it's definitely going to look like this, but actually this looks like this?
It's an interesting question. I think in terms of the product, not so much. I think we obviously constantly get surprised by different pieces of content that come through our system. We do, as I said, a pretty effective job at blocking things now, but we get some pretty left field content at times. But I think in terms of the product, I genuinely think it stayed pretty true to the vision. I think probably what comes next, now that we've delivered that kind of original vision, is probably what's going to be more taken in different directions. I think the biggest surprises for me have come in running a startup, of being part of a sort of fairly unique ecosystem of being a UK startup and talking to investors and VCs and part of that whole dynamic, and then doing most of our work facing farmers in Kenya and Uganda, and that obviously throws up a huge number of challenges for us, and even things like branding and messaging. We need to develop branding and messaging that speaks to a rural farmer in Kenya as much as it speaks to a VC in London or Silicon Valley. And it's been kind of stuff like that we didn't necessarily think about in the beginning that is sort of the biggest surprises and challenges, but that's part of the fun, I guess.
All right. So WeFarm just had 2 years. It's been going for 2 years. If we were to fast forward another 2 years, what do you think it might look like?
I think still alive would be first metric of success. Our ambitions are pretty big. We aim to get to 1 million farmers this year. We're currently growing by more than 1,000 every day, so that's kind of realistic targets that we're working towards. Ultimately our aim is to be almost like a Bloomberg of agricultural information, facing in every direction. So the source of farming knowledge for millions of small-scale farmers worldwide to get the content they need, but also then aggregating that data to provide a unique insight into the world's agriculture to multinationals, to governments, to NGOs, and playing that vital middle role in agriculture. I think the future for the technology is SMS is going to be with us for a long time, but we need to expand into new areas. Obviously, smartphone penetration is growing hugely. Our vision, I think, by the end of this year is for WeFarm to be fully channel agnostic. So whether somebody's using it through Twitter or Facebook, Google, SMS, we want farmers to be getting their information from WeFarm. So hopefully in 2 years' time, many millions of them are.
Excellent stuff. And people listening at home, how can they follow the story of WeFarm?
So please feel free to visit our website at wefarm.org. We also are pretty active on Twitter at we_farm. And definitely encourage people to get involved. It's actually been one of the most, I think, humbling things for me in building this, is seeing not just the kind of reaction of farmers in the field, but how much people at home in the UK get excited about this. I think we're trying to do something a bit different from kind of traditional charity. We're trying to do something empowering, sustainable, and I think people will really respond to that. And we actually get a really exciting response from farmers in the UK that, not necessarily about using the technology, but about the principles and belief that they have in agriculture. Obviously, everybody needs a farmer at least 3 times a day on the planet. And that's a fairly unique place for agriculture. So, if people want to get involved, definitely encourage them to get in contact.
Cool. Well, Kenny, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Before we head, just a quick moment to say thank you for listening. You can see the show notes of this episode by heading to samfloy.com/podcast and then searching for the episode title. That's samfloy.com/podcast. Now, a few people have got in touch and have been asking about how this podcast came about. And well, it all started when I took a one-way flight to Rwanda to seek out business opportunities across the region. I'm now at the stage of formulating a bit of a plan of the business I want to go into, based on all of these podcast interviews, and we'll be keeping a record of what I get up to on my blog. And so if you're interested in being kept in the loop, you can sign up to the newsletter there. Again, it's samfloy.com. Also, if you have any questions, comments or feedback about the podcast, or indeed anything, please feel free to email me, podcast@samfloy.com, and I'd be very happy to chat. In any case, have a great week and speak to you soon.